Greetings and welcome back to room 303 in our Talks with Walt, as we are calling our readings through the deathbed edition of Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass. We turn now to the poem called Song of the Banner at Daybreak. This is poem number 5 of the 43 of the Drum Taps poems. This is the longest poem that Whitman ever wrote on the Civil War, unless, of course, you want to consider Lilacs as being a Civil War poem, which obviously we'll get to that when we'll talk about why that's the case. I want to remind you that in To Thee O Causes, I'm saying about every one of these Drum Taps poems, Whitman said, my book and the war are one. Our assumptions are that you followed our stuff at learnstrong.net. We've given lectures on everything up to and including an introduction to drum taps, and then from Palmanac I Fly, the last poem that we did. Now this poem was written before Whitman had seen any of the real true horrors of the war, so we have to keep that in mind. Norton's will tell us that this one, since in 1861 Banner at Daybreak was advertised by Walt Whitman's publishers, Thayer and Eldridge, as the title poem of a book he had in preparation, it's clear that the poet worked on this poem at least 4 years before Drum Taps was published. And in 1871 and 76, it was transferred to another group, Bathed in War's Perfume, which was abandoned in 1881. The poem, now to finish with Norton's, the poem is exceptional in Leaves of Grass in that it possesses a formal literary pattern which the poet fortunately did not again attempt. A kind of dramatic colloquy in which the poet, at beginning and end, instructs himself and is instructed to sing the idealism of war. Despite its exemplary theme, the poem is over-sententious, and a number of revisions and later editions did not essentially improve it. Now, this is kind of the general view of this poem. I think, though, that we're going to make the argument this is actually a key poem, in my estimation, for understanding Whitman's response to the war. Now, it is in some ways a master chord text. You're going to have 5 speakers, you're going to have the poet, you're going to have a child, you're going to have the father, you're going to have a pennant and a banner. And in some ways, it's not really a dialogue. The poet wins in every way here, obviously having the first and the last word. And as we have said already, this is one of those enthusiasm poems, right? This is the beginning of the war and the celebration and the enthusiasm of what is it that's about to happen. Let's work line by line, section by section. We start, of course, with the poet himself. A new song, a free song, he will say. By the way, a new song, only time in all Leaves of Grass that it actually get used. Of course, 9 times, biblical readers will know this, 9 times, of course, a new song is used. We think, of course, of the Revelation 14:3 verse of a new song. A free song. Now, this use of the word banner in the title will take us back to Song of Exposition 5, and Daybreak will take us to Song of Joys. Just to kind of remind you, in Song of Exposition 5, it was beneath thy banner freedom. A new song, a free song, flapping, 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 flapping. Notice 4 times, and again, we're just going to be talking about the flag. This is going to be a poem where the flag is going to be personified, so just keep that in mind. By sounds, by voices clearer, by the wind's voice and that of the drum, by the banner's voice and child's voice. Of course, this will be Song of Myself, passage 6, right, with the child coming and asking. And C's voice and father's voice, low on the ground and high in the air. We're back to our study of Plato's Republic, as we've given full lectures at learnstrong.net. I went down to the Piraeus as the opening lines of Republic, and the idea of being down or up, obviously Republic 7 and going into the cave and all of that. We're going to be playing a very similar game here. On the ground, where father and child stand, in the upward air, where their eyes turn, where the banner at daybreak is flapping. Now notice the Hegelian-like opposites that we'll be playing with here. High and low. Up high, obviously the banner and the pennant, the flag. Down below, the father and the child. And then in between, we will have the voice of the poet, reminding us, of course, that the Greeks juxtaposed these two and then put the poet or the artist right in the middle, as we have said. Where the banner at daybreak is flapping, and of course daybreak is at the beginning, obviously the dawn of the new world order in terms of the war that's coming, and then sounding very much like Hamlet in Hamlet 2 with Polonius, words, book words. What are you? And there's this juxtaposition between the kind of intelligentsia view and then of course the actual real life view. Words no more. For hearken and see, obviously this is a formulation we've seen. My song is there in the open air. Go back to Song of the Open Road, passage 6. And I must sing. I must sing is used one time in All Leaves of Grass. It's right here. With the banner and pennant a flapping. I'll weave the cord and twine in. Now, obviously he's talking about the flag, but I'd like to remind us that this weaving theme was one of the central themes of our study of the Odyssey. We've given full lectures at learnstrong.net. Go back and take a look at what I say there. As well, notice the Song of Myself, passage 15. I will weave the song of myself is the actual line. So this takes us to this idea. By the way, pennant was used already in the ship starting, and we'll see it several times throughout Leaves of Grass. I will weave the cord and twine in man's desire and babe's desire. I'll twine them in. I'll put in life. I'll put the bayonet's flashing point. I'll let bullets and slugs whiz. Of course, some onomatopoeia, as we know, as one carrying a symbol and menace far into the future, crying with trumpet voice, arouse and beware, beware and arouse. Notice the italics. I'll pour the verse with streams of blood, full of volition, full of joy. It's interesting how he juxtaposes the idea of blood and joy, right? And the suffering that obviously will be the war. Then loosen, launch forth to go and compete with the banner and pennant flapping. By the way, this use of the word launch, remember it in Song of Myself 44, I launch all men and women, and then also in Song of the Answer number 2, to launch off with absolute faith. So he likes this use of the word. Now we'll have the pennant speak for the first time. Come up here, bard, and then he says it a second time, bard. You'll remember at Eidolons, we have the prophet and the bard mentioned. Come up here, soul, soul. Come up here, dear little child. And of course, this little child is going to factor heavily. To fly in the clouds and winds with me and play with the measureless light. You'll remember in Song of Myself 46, I know I have the best of time and space and was never measured and never will be measured. Here it's measureless light. The child then will speak for the first time. Father, what is that in the sky beckoning to me with long finger? It's interesting that it's a long finger. And what does it say to me all the while? The child, of course, trying to understand the symbol. Father speaks for the first time. Nothing, my babe, you see in the sky. Now here the father is going to be represented as only interested in avarice, in economics, and the like. In other words, he's always looking down as opposed to looking up. Nothing, my babe, you see in the sky. And nothing at all to you, it says, but look you, my babe, look at these dazzling things. You'll remember from our study of Milton's Paradise Lost that Mammon has this orientation where he's always looking down at the gold, the dazzling things. Look at these dazzling things in the houses. We're going to get back to houses and everything that's listed here in a bit, several times in the poem. And see you the money shops opening, and see you the vehicles preparing to crawl. It's an interesting verb. Along the streets with goods. These, how valued and toiled for these, how envied by all the earth. So the father is going to say to the son, you don't need to spend any time looking up at a flag and the symbolism of the flag and the patriotism it implies. Just stick with the idea of economics. The poet then will come back for the second time. Fresh and rosy red the sun. Of course, we think of our Homer, it's mounting high. On floats the sea in distant blue, careening through its channels. On floats the wind over the beast of the sea, setting in toward land. The great steady wind from east or west by south, floating so buoyant with milk-white foam on the waters. Of course, the idea of sailing and Barnegat and all the other poems that we've had, obviously we're going to see it again at Passage to India. But I'm not the sea, nor the red sun. I am not the wind with girlish laughter. It's an interesting phrase. Nor the immense wind which strengthens, not the wind which lashes, not the spirit that ever lashes its own body to terror and death. Think about Odysseus being lashed to the mast, of course, in the Odyssey. But I am that which unseen comes and sings, sings, sings. Again, the repetition. Which babbles in brooks and scoots in showers. Notice all the language, all the sounds here, the S sounds and the B sounds. On the land. Which the birds know in the woods morning and evening, and the shore sands know, and the hissing wave. We're going to get to hissing a little bit later when we talk about the hissing snake. Hissing wave, and that banner and pennant aloft there flapping and flapping. Now the child will come back at number 2 to again ask, or to speak to the father, oh father, it is alive, it's full of people, it has children. Now, obviously the antecedent to the pronoun it, most likely we're talking obviously about the pennant and the banner or the flag, right? By the way, there's 5 O's in this passage. Oh, now it seems to me, you'll remember in Song of Myself, passage 6, it seems to me that the grass is the beautiful uncut hair of grace. This phraseology of it seems to me it's talking to its children. I hear it, it talks to me. Oh, it's wonderful, it stretches, it spreads and runs so fast. Oh, my Father, it's so broad, it covers the whole sky. And obviously, we're now referencing democracy itself. The Father will come back now for the second time. Cease, cease, my foolish babe. In other words, stop, stop. What you are saying is sorrowful to me. Much it displeases me. Behold, with the rest again I say, behold not banners and pennants aloft, but the well-prepared pavements. Behold and mark the solid walled houses. In other words, look down, don't look up. We're gonna come back to this look down here in passage 3 of the poet in a little bit. Now the banner and the pennant are joined together. This will be the first time the banner is mentioned. Second time, obviously, the pennant. Speak to the child, O bard out of Manhattan, to our children all. So in other words, here we go. I told you guys, you cannot get away from the idea that Whitman is deeply, deeply impressed, I think, with this whole notion of being the teacher. I think it's an important way for us to think about it. Speak to the child, O bard out of Manhattan, to our children all, or north or south, notice not capitalized, of Manhattan, both this day, leaving all the rest. As we pointed out, Whitman loves to use the word leaving, obviously leaves of grass, to us over all. And again, he loves the use of the word all. And yet we know not why. For what we are, mere strips of cloth profiting nothing, only flapping in the wind, it's obviously a question. That is, I think, the ultimate question for Whitman. What is, in fact, America and American democracy? The poet will then come back with 20 I's to be used now. I hear and see, not strips of cloth alone. I hear the tramp of armies. By the way, I tramp a perpetual journey all, he will say in Song of Myself 46, this use of the word tramp. I hear the challenging century. I hear the jubilant shouts of millions of men. I hear liberty. By the way, jubilant, you'll remember, was used in Song of Joys, and then we're going to get to an end today when we come to the end of Leaves of Grass. Triumph, transformation, jubilant. I hear liberty, notice capitalized. I hear the drums beat and the trumpets blowing. I myself move abroad, swift, rising, flying then. I use the wings of the landbird. Notice the poet identifying now with the flag that's flying. I use the flags, the wings of the land bird, and use the wings of the seabird, and look down as from a height. Notice again the juxtaposition of looking down for the father to the child. Look down. Now the poet will say, I'm looking down. I do not deny the precious results of peace. You'll remember Song of the Open Road, passage 15, more precious than money, this use of the word precious. I see populous cities with wealth incalculable. I see numberless farms. I see the farmers working in their fields or barns. We've obviously seen this so many times in Leaves of Grass. I see mechanics working. I see buildings everywhere, founded, going up, or finished. All the technologies now. I see trains of cars swiftly speeding along. Railroad tracks drawn by the locomotives. I see the stores, depots of, now he's going to mention 4 cities, Boston, Baltimore, Charleston, New Orleans. It's interesting, those are the cities, by the way. I see far in the west, notice capitalized, the immense area of grain. I dwell a while hovering, right? I pass to the lumber forests of the north, and again to the southern plantation, both capitalized, and again to California, sweeping, and again we move from hovering to sweeping. The whole, I see the countless profit. By the way, so much of this getting us ready to read Sleepers when we finally pick up that poem. The busy gatherings, earned wages, everything's about money or profits. See the identity, obviously is such an important idea. Identity formed out of 38 spacious and haughty states. Of course, by 12 of March 1959, Hawaii is the 50th state. Will finally arrive here. It's only 38. See forts on the shores of harbors. See ships sailing in and out. Then over all, again, he loves the word all. I, my little and lengthened pennant shaped like a sword. Obviously, the martial language. And takes us back, of course, at 3a to Virgil's Aeneid. Runs swiftly up, indicating war and defiance. And now the Highlands, this is the ropes of ships, the only use of it in all of Leaves of Grass, have raised it. Side of my banner broad and blue, side of my starry banner. Of course, starry here takes us back to pioneers, oh pioneers. Discarding peace over all the sea and land. Now this idea of you have to have war to have peace is an old and ancient idea, and it's going to be played out here as well. And then a second time the banner, a third time the pennant will speak. Yet louder, higher, stronger bar, yet further, wider, cleave. I told you about this idea of cleaving, of at the same time cutting and grabbing. No longer let our children deem us riches and peace alone. We may be terror and carnage, and are so now, Not now are we any one of these spacious and haughty states, nor any 5, nor 10. By the way, states capitalized, right? Nor market, nor depot, nor money bank in the city. In other words, America isn't just about profit. But these and all, and the brown and spreading land, and the mines below are ours, and the shores of the sea are ours, and the rivers great and small, and the fields they moisten, and the crops and the fruits are ours. Bays and channels and ships sailing in and out are ours. While we all over the area spread below, the 3 or 4 millions of square miles. Today, of course, we're talking about 3.797 million square miles of America. The capitals, the 40 millions of people, and by 2021 we were at 331.9 million people. So, you know, we can play the game of differentiating back then and now. O Bard, in life and death supreme, even we, henceforth, flaunt our masterful high up above. Not for the present alone. For 1,000 years, I told you guys, he loves to use the 1,000. For 1,000 years, chanting through you this song to the soul of one poor child. Remember earlier it was the dear little child. Remember chanting in, as I pondered in silence, he says, chanting the chant of battles, so here we are. The child in number 3 comes back. Oh, my father, he says, I like not the houses. They will never to me be anything, nor do I like money, but to mount up there I would like, oh Father dear, that banner I like, that pennant I would be, and, of course, must be. The Father will come back now for one more time. Child of mine, you fill me with anguish. Go back to Song of Joys with this use of the word anguish. The precious love, the anguish is the way it was used there. To be that pennant. And I think there is a lot of Hamlet here. I think readers of Whitman's day would have identified Shakespeare in some of these lines. To be that pennant would be too fearful. Little you know what it is this day, and after this day forever. It's a compelling line. In other words, the father is saying to the child, you do not understand what it is that you're saying you want. Forward to stand in front of wars, and oh, such wars. What have you to do with them? It's a darkly ironic question. With passions of demons, slaughter, premature death. By the way, this risk and defy, he says it this way, little you know what it is this day, and after this day forever. It is to gain nothing, he says, but risk and defy everything. By the way, risk and defy is only used one time in Leaves of Grass, and it's right here. And it takes us to Passage to India later when we see it at passage 9. We'll see it, right? Risk and defy everything. Forward to stand in front of wars, and oh, such wars. What have you to do with them? What a compelling question. With passions of demons, slaughter, premature death. It is a difficult question. By the way, demons, you'll remember from Song of the Exposition 9, wild demons surging. The banner then will come back for number 3 time. Demons and death then I sing. Put it all, all will. I sword-shaped pennant for war. And a pleasure new and ecstatic, I think this is the key word of the poem, and the prattled yearning of children, I think the word yearning is so central, blent with the sounds of the peaceful land and the liquid wash of the sea. Now we're going to get 6 of these ands. And the black ships fighting on the sea enveloped in smoke, and the icy cool of the far, far north with rustling cedars and pines, and the whir of drums, and the sound of soldiers marching, and the hot sun shining forth. And the beach waves combing over the beach on my eastern shore and my western shore the same, and all between those shores, and my ever-running Mississippi with bends and chutes. We obviously think of our Twain. And my Illinois fields and my Kansas fields. Again, it's always ironic when Kansas gets mentioned, given, of course, the slavery question that would lead to the war. And my fields of Missouri, the continent, devoting the whole identity, again, back to it, but notice this time not capitalized, without reserving an atom. Do you remember Song of Myself? Passage 1, I celebrate myself and see myself, and what I assume you shall assume, for every atom belonging to me as well belongs to you. An atom, pour in, whelm that which asks, which sings with all and the yield of all. And then look at all these ing words, fusing and holding, claiming, devouring the whole. No more with tender lip. You'll remember it was that soft and dainty and some of those kinds of words. Claiming, devouring the whole. No more with tender lip, nor musical label sound. But out of the night, and this will be the significance of daybreak, out of the night, emerging for good, our voice persuasive no more. By the way, this for good is obviously the sustained theodicy of Whitman all the way through Leaves of Grass. No. The Civil War had to happen, and in the end, it was necessary. It was even, dare we say it, good. Persuasive no more. In other words, words no longer are going to work. Croaking like crows here in the wind. It's an amazing simile, this croaking like crows in the wind. Finally, the poet will then finish this echoing song. My limbs, my veins dilate. My theme is clear at last. Banner so broad, advancing out of the night. I sing you, haughty and resolute. I burst through where I waited long, too long, deafened and blinded. My hearing and tongue are come to me. A little child taught me. Again, taking us back to Song of Myself, passage 6. I hear from above, O pennant of war, your ironical call and demand. And then he uses the term, for the only time in Leaves of Grass, insatiate, insatiate. It's almost like beyond feeling, right? Yet I at any rate chant you, O banner. Not houses of peace indeed are you. And this use of the word houses makes us think, of course, of Lincoln's "A house divided against itself cannot stand," which I think is a compelling way to read this poem. Not houses of peace indeed are you, nor, by the way, watch all the not and nors here, nor any, nor all their prosperity, if need be, you shall again have every one of those houses to destroy them. You thought not to destroy those valuable houses standing fast, full of comfort, built with money. May they stand fast then? In other words, America isn't what we build in terms of houses and the like. It is the building process, right, for Whitman. He says, may they stand fast then, not an hour except you above them and all stand fast. In other words, this war thing has got to happen. And that's the only way America goes forward. Oh, banner, one more time. Not money so precious are you, not farm produce you, nor the material good nutrient, nor excellent stores, nor landed on wharves from the ships, nor the superb ships with sail power or steam power fetching